I think in general, most of the bigger copyright cases, and again, there's always exceptions, but the majority of cases tend to be in New York, like the Second Circuit, and then in the Seventh Circuit in California. Or is it Ninth, sorry. In the Second Circuit in New York and the Ninth Circuit in California. And again, I'm most familiar with the New York law and the Second Circuit and the copyright cases there. I know that California law is much more artist favorable, so a lot of the contracts with the major record labels, even if the labels are based in California, they make the forum New York. They want New York courts and New York law to apply. I don't know exactly the reason. I think in general, like I said, there's certain more favorable, artist favorable provisions in California, like a 7-year rule, and you have to make a certain amount of money and stuff like that. In general, I think all courts in America tend to be business favorable, so they tend to want to, they don't rewrite contracts, and this is a lot of times what artists don't understand. They signed a bad contract, I'm getting ripped off, can you get me out of it? You know, we can claim breach, but suing on a breach, you know, it's difficult to force the court to say you're out of the contract. You know, in England, there's a whole line of cases where that's happened. But in America, that very rarely happens. If you sue on the breach because the manager isn't doing his job, or the manager sues the artist because you fired him, but he still wants his 20%. If the contract says he's your manager and he gets 20% for the next 5 years, it's very hard to, and it doesn't require him to do much, which most of them don't. You know, it's very tough for a court to say, well, I don't think it's fair, I'm just not going to agree to enforce it. I mean, the courts enforce it as written. So unless it's very vague and ambiguous, and they can interpret it in such a way to squeeze somebody out that they don't like, in general, I think all courts tend to favor, you know, business, or favor keeping the contract in place, and not necessarily going to rip it up and throw it out the window, but they're going to enforce it as they read it, which frequently, you know, works against the artist who thinks it's not fair and may in fact not be fair.